I am so excited, really, about the next 4 Sundays and feel very, very blessed to have been asked, in the first place. It's quite an honor. At the Darshan Center, we have our own thing that we do on Sunday nights at 6:30. Shameless plug, 840 East Oakland Park Boulevard in Oakland Park. And it's interfaith, it's interfaith. And here is unity consciousness. Here is Christ consciousness. Here is a new thought. And it fits so perfectly with what we do at Darshan. At Darshan, we bring in a lot of different faith practices and energies of the mystical aspects of these other faith practices. So this is a real nice relationship. I feel like you and I, Darshan and Unity, Pompano are like cousins. So that we feel we're part of the family, yes? So we're going to talk a little bit about kingdoms of consciousness. And, I wanted to just kind of give you a little bit of an overview first, because I'm going to be talking for 4 weeks. And so if we just end like today, leaving here thinking that I'm just going to talk about victim consciousness, well, that would be a big Debbie Downer, right? But there's more to it than meets the eye. Victim consciousness is really the first one. It's the to-me consciousness. But then we move into, hopefully, if we have the ability to shift our consciousness and shift our awareness, into by-me consciousness, and I'll explain that next week in much more detail. And then even further, let's go even further, let's go even deeper, let's go even bigger and greater and more expansive into the next one, which really moves us from a dualistic mentality into a non-dualistic mentality. And so the last 2 Sundays, we'll be talking about that kind of through me consciousness, or that, is me consciousness, into the final one, as me consciousness, God consciousness, Christ consciousness. So it really is, it all can be done in one Sunday. It really can, if you wanted to do a talk on kingdoms of consciousness. But since Bev and Lawrence asked me if I would do 4 Sundays, I was like, this is perfect. And I have to give credit and kudos, as the professor that I am. I always have to give the in-text citation and the props, right, to where I got this from. I went to an Awake conference, a World Alliance of Interfaith Clergy, and I met this woman, Reverend Alice Reed. She was from the Center for Spiritual Living, and she talked about kingdoms of consciousness. And then when I looked further into it and researched it, Michael Beckwith also talks about it. So it's like, it's really in this new thought arena. It's not a new concept, and I want to put it right out that it isn't mine, right? It's not original. And in fact, if we really think about, metaphysical, the metaphysical and the mystical aspect, nothing is really mine. And see, this is where victim consciousness really starts to kind of like be crystal clear for us. Because when we're in this victim consciousness, in this to-me consciousness, it's all about me. And everything originates and ends with me. So in this kingdom, we believe that the good, the bad, and the ugly of life are all happening to me, to us. When I open up my CNN app, or my other apps, my AP app, or all my news apps that I have on my phone, immediately I start feeling dread. Can anybody identify? Oh, I thought it was just me. Oh, that's good. But I do have a tendency to have a negative outlook on life. I do. I struggle with this because I kind of reside too often in to-me consciousness. Look, I'm going to be honest. How many of you really have heard me speak before and like know me? So if you know me, I was raised Catholic, and so I'm a confessor. I have to confess my sins immediately in front of everyone, right? So like this is where I struggle. My struggle is in to-me consciousness. My struggle is in this victim mentality. And it is what Eckhart Tolle talks about when he talks about the pain body. And in this state of consciousness, you know, we love to like bring other people in on the tragedy, on the adversity. Did you hear? Did you see? Did you know? Let me tell you my story. Oh my goodness. You know, when I went traveling, I lost my luggage and this and that. And you got to bring people in on it, and you keep ruminating on the story. And you keep solidifying it in your mind that this was unfair, that this happened to me. Why did this happen to me? You know, people, places, and things are constantly disappointing us. Isn't it true? Yes. And Buddha talked about this. Buddha said, life is suffering. It's like, oh, great. Thank you, Buddha. What a Debbie Downer you are. Jeez. Why? Why is life suffering? You know, look, the minute we're born, right, we're dying. The minute we're born, we're doomed to that ending. The minute we fall in love with someone, there's an expiration date on that at some point, through loss, through death, through divorce, through separation. The things we hold dear to us, we're always clinging and craving, right? I mean, and this is what the Buddha said. And Buddha said, you know, you suffer, people, because you're attached. And we're attached to outcomes. Now, I loved the Daily Word because it talks about releasing the past. You know, and look, there's a lot of things that every single person in this room, if we had like a month to kind of like brainstorm with each other, we would all hear trauma stories. Is there anyone you think that in this room or in your lives that is really free from trauma? I don't think so. Free from injury, free from unjust things that happen to me. This happened to me. And it builds resentment in us. And justified anger, which is the worst. That's the worst kind of anger that I have, is righteous anger. I see people shaking their heads so they identify I'm not alone. I try to get other people on my side too. I tell the story so that they can, you know, it's like I'm deliberating with the jury. Like, you know, I'm doing my closing arguments with the jury, and I'm telling the jury, my friends or people who will listen, about all of the things that happened to me that shouldn't have happened to me, so that I can get them in agreement with me. So what I'm doing is this low vibration is pulling other people into a low vibration. Now, if anybody had a right to adopt a victim mentality, it was the Master Jesus. Yes? Would you agree? Absolutely. I mean, here he is. He didn't do anything wrong. Talk about somebody who's got the right to righteous anger, who's betrayed. He was abandoned by his friends. He was arrested, wrongful accusations, wrongful convictions, wrongful death. But instead, in response to his suffering, he had the mindset of a humble servant. He endured faithfully the divine plan. He lovingly suffered, right? The Zen Buddhist would remind us that while pain is unavoidable, suffering is optional. Now, for many years, I nurtured, grew a wonderful resentment. It was like, it started with a seed. It happened when I was a teenager, and my family, right? Happened some, you know, anybody have family trauma? Please don't make me be the only one up here saying that. Okay. So here's the seed, and then what I did, and like that was a long time ago. I'm 62 years old. That's a long 15, you know, I was 15 and then 19, but that's a long time ago. I took that seed and I watered it, and the sun helped it to grow, and the rain helped it to grow. And I carried it around with me, this tree of resentment, keeping me down, keeping me in a low vibration, keeping me in a low frequency. And the more I thought about it, and the more I talked about it in therapy, and the more, you know, and the list goes on and on. Can anyone else understand what I'm saying? Yeah? Oh, good. I have an amen in the back. Great. Awesome. Or an aho. The Zen Buddhist says, listen, that happened a long time ago. Put that person down, put that thing down, put that seed down, put that resentment down, put that victimization down, and let's keep it moving. And that's what the Daily Word was about, yeah? It was about releasing the past. You know, we could go on and on and on and share all of our injuries, but the Taoist in the Tao Te Ching, right, reminds us about go with the flow. Bring Wu Wei into this thing. You know, it's a divine plan. Go with the flow and unwrap the gift. Is there a gift? And there's always a gift. I was teaching at a college in 2010, and I was doing really well, I thought, really well. I had really great evaluations. I don't know. I just did a lot of projects, a lot of programming. I thought it was great. I mean, I struggle with being either feeling less than or better than, never equal to, right? That's my struggle right there. So, and I'm a egomaniac with an inferiority complex. So, you know, that's my thing, right? Which really plays into the whole to me consciousness piece. You know, paranoia, people are out to get you, hostile environment. I know you're going to say, oh, well, let's not ask her back anymore. Yeah, she needs real super duper help, but thank you. You're in the right place. Welcome. Okay, so I worked there for 3 years. I did a really good job, I thought. And, you know, you go up for tenure and you go up for promotion and all of that, and I didn't get it. And in our industry, in academia, when you don't get tenure, you get fired, you know, and that's it. And I got the notice, and it was like, major to me consciousness, major victim consciousness. It's not fair. And then I start lighting candles. I mean, we'll talk about this next week when we talk about by me consciousness, how we move from, you know, the problem into the solution. But I was still kind of resisting. I was resisting what is. And that's victim consciousness. That's the to me consciousness, the kingdom where you will reside, where you are trying to manipulate outcomes. Change what is, rather than look at, how do I unwrap this gift? What is the universe telling me? And I think that what the universe was telling me in that situation, as I delved a little deeper into what was my role that I played, and I think that I needed a little humility, like St. Paul. You know, when Paul gets knocked off his horse, you know, I think I needed that for my own spiritual evolution. So I would light candles at my altar at home and hope that the appeal would go in my favor, and it didn't. And it was really a rough deal. And a lot of stuff with victim consciousness and to me consciousness, it starts bringing up a whole bunch of other stuff. So then it was like, I'm a high school dropout, and I am. I was pulled out of high school through no fault of my own, I would think, right? But I was pulled out of high school. And so I walk around sometimes with that feeling of less than, that feeling of not that smart, not as smart as everyone else. GED, I have a GED. So immediately the victim consciousness that I was in, this lower vibration, was making me think about how, see, it's true. I'm really stupid. Like, I really don't belong here. And they're right. Now, living in this is a place where many of us get stuck in. We get stuck in this victim headset, you know, that things are happening to me, and failing to look at what's the gift. We magnify the bad things that happen to us. We attribute them exclusively to people and things that are outside of our control. But what we lose is the perspective of absolute reality. And what is the divine plan? And I have to go back to Jesus again. here's Jesus, right? And Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he's praying. First of all, he asks his friends to stay with him. Please stay with me. He just needed support. You know, he was in human form, and he was experiencing human vibration. So he wanted support, like we all do. He wasn't crying to them. He wasn't complaining to them. He wasn't telling them that he was a victim and this was all happening to him. But what he was saying was, just be with me. Just hold space. But they couldn't do it because they were in their own self-centered fear. They were also worried. They also were overwhelmed. And they went to sleep. And I don't think that that's a coincidence that they went to sleep. I think that that's a mystical, metaphysical kind of significance there. We go to sleep. When we are in this victim headset, we start to go to sleep. And what I mean by go to sleep is not physical sleep, but spiritual sleep. We forget that we're plugged in. We forget that we're co-creators with God. We forget that there's a divine plan. You know, when I always say this, we either believe or we don't. How many of you believe that there's a higher power? How many of you believe that there's a divine intelligence? How many of you believe in the Christ consciousness that is within us and that we are made up of the same ingredients as this absolute reality? Yes? I'm not alone in that? Okay, well, we believe it, but do we apply this? Because when stuff happens and it hits the fan, right? We immediately go into this, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I'm going to tell you a little story, very, very short story. Chris and I went to France for 2 weeks, and it was really amazing, an amazing experience. I was very proud of myself because I ordinarily will be a ball full of anxiety, and if anything could go wrong, it will go wrong. That's my mentality. That's my default mentality. That's my human vibrational mentality. And am I alone? Oh, good. Throughout the whole entire trip, I had to constantly be in, what do I believe? Do I or do I not believe that I have all the king's horses and all the king's men, all of the angels, all of the saints, all of the sages, everything that is there for my best and highest good with me? Yes. So if I believe that, then I've got to let it go. Then I've got to give it to them and let them do their thing. You ever have an event planner for anything? A wedding, bar mitzvah, anniversary, anything, an event planner. You pay them good money. If you're smart, you pick the best one. And then you let them do it. You tell them, here's my ideas, here's what my preferences, you take care of it. Now, can you imagine going up to them every 2 minutes and going, excuse me, I told you, could you? You have to release the control. And so when I am in this state of victim consciousness, when I am in this place of to me, it's happening all to me, what I'm doing is I'm completely ignoring the divine plan. And I am also completely ignoring all of the help from my higher power. I'm completely saying to that event planner, my global operations director, G-O-D, God, right? What I'm saying then is I don't 100% trust you. Now, some of you might be saying or thinking, or those of you who are watching us at home might be saying, you don't understand, Rev G, because the trauma that I experienced, that cannot be God's plan. And when you look at the world and you look at the sadness of things that are happening that are so cruel, you go, that's God's plan? Is that the divine plan? My grandmother used to say, there's a tapestry that God is creating. From our view, it looks like a bunch of like strings across, and it makes no sense, and it has no rhyme or reason. It looks random and chaotic. But from God vision, spirit vision, it's a beautiful tapestry. So I either believe that or I don't. And sometimes adversity, Swami Jyotirmayananda, my guru, he says, adversity is really austerity in disguise. And so that Miami-Dade incident, I just mentioned the name of the school. I didn't really mean to, but oh well, there it is. Was such a blessing. It was such a blessing for my spiritual evolution. Now I teach at NSU. I found my home. I love it there. I'm appreciated. But I walked into that place with humility. And I continue to do that. I try to do that. Sometimes I can't help it. I was a lieutenant in the NYPD for 20 years. I can't help it, James. You know what I mean? It just comes out. It's in me to control everything. So I'm going to close with this. The yogi would teach us that we are not this body. We're not this mind. We're not this limited personality. We are made up of the same ingredients as our absolute reality creator, the divine. And so when things go bad and happen to me, deserving or otherwise, I can choose now to either see the divine gift in this. I could see how this is helping me in my spiritual evolution. And more importantly, as I emerge from those ashes of that victimization, I can share my experience, strength, and hope with others so that they can identify with me and see how I did it. I'm going to close with 3 quotes. Pain pushes you until the vision pulls you. That's from Michael Beckwith. Tony Robbins says, change happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. And that reminds me of like a surgeon. When I had surgery in October, had a shoulder repair. And, boy, anybody have surgery ever? Oof, it's hard. It's rough. Recovering from that is very hard. It's very painful. But when you emerge from that, you're so much stronger than you ever were before. And so that pain is important. And the last one, if there is a meaning in life at all, then there must be a meaning in suffering. Suffering is an ineradicable part of life, even as fate and death. Without suffering and death, human life can't be complete. The test then for all of us is, how do we respond to the victimization? How do we respond to the suffering in our lives and shift our consciousness? We'll talk next week about what does it mean to engage in by me consciousness, which is going from the problem to the solution. Namaste.